Hi, this video is going to look at exchange rates as a key topic to revise before your exams. It's supposed to be relatively quick, so I'm going to go through the theory quite quickly. If you need to revise exchange rates in more detail, look elsewhere for videos or go to the textbook. But an exchange rate is the price of one currency against another. So if I'm going to buy dollars, I need to exchange pound for them, and that dollar has a price in pounds. Currencies get weaker and stronger. Stronger currency appreciates, and there's an acronym that you can use here to remember. Strong pound, imports cheaper, exports dearer. So let's have a quick look at how that works. Really simple example. £1 used to buy me $1. Now it buys me two. The pound's got stronger. So if I'm buying an import from the US, I might be paying £10 for it. When it's 1-for-1, I pay £10 for that $10 product. When it's 1-for-2, I pay £1, I get $2 for a $10 product. I need only exchange £5. Excellent news for me as an importer. As an exporter, it's less good. I'm trying to charge my US customers £10. When it's 1-for-1, I only charge them $10. Right, that same £10, to collect that same £10 from my US customer, I need to charge them $20. Okay, I'm collecting the same £10. I don't collect any more from 20. The US customer's paying $20 now. Right, I don't collect any more pounds. I collect that same £10. But now to collect £10, because the pound got stronger, I need to charge my US customer more. All right, what's a strong currency good for? It's good for importing products. Obviously, they get cheaper. It's also good if I want to conduct foreign direct investment, FDI. If I want to go and buy a factory in the US, right, and a $1 million factory, okay, if it's 1-for-1, it costs me £1 million. Now it just costs £500,000. All right, the factory price hasn't changed, but the amount I pay in pounds does, thanks to the stronger exchange rate. Okay, so strong currency, good for imports, good for investing abroad, because my pound goes further. All right, weaker exchange rate, currency is said to depreciate. Weaker pound, imports dear, exports cheaper. Okay, so here's a weaker pound example. It was 1-for-2 dollars, now it's 1-for-1. A $10 import from the US, it used to cost me £5, okay, because to buy $2, I just needed £1. Now to buy $2, I need £2, and that $10 product cost me £10 to import. Export, great news for me as an exporter, to charge £10 to my US customer. Previously, I had to charge them $20. Now I just charge them $10. So this is great if I'm exporting, right? I'm not changing my selling price. I'm collecting the same £10. It's just I'm charging the US customer less. Okay, so weak pound, great news if I'm exporting, because I can sell more lots of £10. All right, my US customer might respond positively to this cut in the selling price and buy more units from me. I collect more £10. Key thing, I'm collecting the same £10. It makes no difference to me, and I wouldn't even be aware of it unless I'm keeping an eye on the exchange rate, because those £10 just keep coming in. I'm just getting more of them because the US customer might be responding. Okay, it's also good if I repatriate profit. So let's say I've got a little operation going in the States. It earns $10,000 in profit. I repatriate that. It was £50,000. Now, when the exchange rate gets weaker, $100,000 is now £100,000. Great news for me if I'm repatriating profits. All right. So, okay. Typical question that might get asked. The pound gets weaker against the dollar. Assess the impact of a weaker pound to dollar exchange rate on ABC PLC. Right, so there's a few sort of things that I would try and include in a question like this. I'd probably do a paragraph on costs and a paragraph on revenue. Right, and as soon as I got this question, I would be writing Whipperdeck, so I remember what I'm talking about. Okay, so in my cost paragraph, I'm going to have a look at the cost of raw materials, import to DIRA. Okay, so what's the impact on costs? So imports dearer, the cost of imports from the US rises. Remember, it's the pound dollar. So I'm only talking about imports from the US. All right. Now, how is that going to affect my selling price? Because if the cost of imports rises, I might look to pass that on to my customers if I can, because if I can't, I'm going to have to eat a lower profit margin myself. Okay, and that's going to depend on PED. If I'm importing products from the US, the cost of those products goes up, and my costs have risen. If I've got price inelastic demand when I'm selling my product in the UK or anywhere indeed, I might choose to raise my selling price because I'm not going to lose that many customers because of price inelastic demand. If I've got price elastic demand, I'm going to look at absorbing that higher cost in a lower profit margin, because if I raise my selling price, I lose customers. All right, but remember, it's just the pound to dollar exchange rate that we're talking about here. So I would look for hints in the case study that we are importing from the US, because if we're able to switch suppliers to elsewhere, maybe it's just the pound getting weak. Maybe it's a sign of dollar strength, right, rather than pound weakness. So it might be that that we've got weaker against the pound, but have we got weaker against the euro? All right, as well. Okay, so that's an evaluation point. The pound is, we're comparing it to many different currencies, not just the dollar. All right, well, what about revenues? Well, I'm going back to where I've written this, and exports are cheaper. Okay, great. So I've got a paragraph now on revenues. So my revenues from exports to the US rises, and I could go through the little example here where my £10 product costs $20. It now just costs $10, so I should sell more units. All right, great. So that would be if I've got price elastic demand where consumers are very responsive to a change in price. This is going to be great news for me if I can cut my selling price. All right. However, I could maintain if I've got price inelastic demand for my products. And remember, British exports do tend to have quite a positive reputation abroad. So maybe people want to pay that $20. They don't mind paying that $20 for the British product. So rather than cutting my selling price, I could maintain my $20 selling price and collect £20 instead. Okay, make a larger profit margin. So again, it's going to depend on PED. It's going to depend on the levels of competition. If I want a competitive advantage and the US is a really competitive export market, I cut my selling price and take advantage of the lower exchange rate that way. And again, remember, the question here is just about the pound getting weaker against the dollar. All right. If I only sell 5% of my products to the US, is it going to have a big impact, this lower exchange rate? Well, maybe not. Okay, so overall, what are we going to look at? So the question is about a weaker exchange rate. Okay, and we know it affects the price of imports and exports. If I'm importing loads, a weaker exchange rate, not so good. If I'm exporting loads, a weaker exchange rate could be quite good. And we're focused, the question is about the dollar exchange rate. So it's all about trade with the US, right? What percentage of my trade is with other countries and what's happened with the exchange rate there? Okay, can I pass on changes in the exchange rate? We've gone through that, price elasticity of demand. Lots of businesses have contracts, particularly in the short term. So if the exchange rate gets weaker, I might have a 6-month contract with my US supplier. All right. Now, I've agreed to buy this much product for this price. And if I get a weaker exchange rate, I'm just going to have to suck that up and pay it because I've got a contract. But in the long term, I might be able to renegotiate that contract. So in other words, in the short term, the weaker exchange rate is bad for me because I've got that contract. But in the long term, it might be good because I can increase exports to the US. I'm going to mention this several occasions, right? We're just talking about the US pound exchange rate. So what percentage of business do I do with the US versus other currencies? And that's that final point as well. Okay. So hopefully that video was helpful. I know it's a complicated topic. You can ask questions if you want in the comments, but hopefully that gives you a bit of support revising this topic.